Actually, I mean, it's an interesting thing that you say, right? If you actually look at the history of how the placements has evolved in India, it was not evolved. I mean, everything that's out there has got the origin story has got nothing to do with, how they fit the job, or rather, how, I mean, let me say the story, maybe the message will evolve, right? Early on when we had the Y2K, we had companies that wanted to hire people in numbers primarily because it was a cost arbitration, right? I hire people at a low cost. I basically bill the customer per hour, and there was a deadline that's hanging on my, kind of a knife on my head, guillotine on my head, that I need to get it fixed by 31st December.
Yeah. 2000. Yeah.
2000, right? So 1999.
Yeah.
So everybody was not questioning that whether they should invest and get the Y2K fix, because it was a survival of those companies, right? All the banking systems that were built on COBOL and whatever, Fortran. And the skill that was required to fix it was you are essentially changing a 2-digit year logic to a 4-digit year logic, right? And that we learn about in what 3rd grade, 4th grade, to compute date differences and all that. And to have a communication with the customer effectively done, you need to have some level of English. And if you look at the early models of how these companies recruited, they were actually looking at Shakuntala Devi puzzles and simple problem analysis. So that's all they were trying, because anyway you can't go and learn these mainframe or other things easily outside. It's not like today where you can learn every tech stack outside, probably even for free, right? So that was not the case. And to top it all, there was a kind of a golden goose, right? Like you had so much of money to be made from that Y2K as a business opportunity, and all we needed is human capital who are smart, who can do problem solving, who can communicate in English. And the only reason they needed to have a 4-year degree was because most countries gave a skilled worker visa for a 4-year degree.
Right.
There was no other relation, because you're testing them. You look at the early tests of all recruitment companies that used recruitment tests. If you look at all of that, they were only assessing for 8th standard maths and 8th standard English. What was the need for going for a 4-year degree?
Right.
Somebody should have stopped and asked that question, right? And essentially it was that. So there was actually absolutely no relationship between the skill that they acquired in that 4 years of undergraduate to and then eventually the market took its own path and all that. Now I think we have seen a lot of skill-based hiring, especially in product companies, especially as the startup ecosystem goes up in India. You have a lot of these local companies hiring, and you see a lot more skill-based and competency-based hiring that's happening. So I think it will correct in itself, but fundamentally placement as a process evolved for headcount.
Correct.
Right. I mean, and I think it has taken a while for the industry to kind of adjust and say, no, we need to figure out what's a good talent match, talent to opportunity match or fitment. Right? So I think that's the evolution it's on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Cognizant was a fantastic experience that way. Built a very learning analytics driven sort of way to identify talent while they were waiting to join Cognizant based on their learning footprints, right? And essentially what I zeroed in on was how do I measure for learning agility, right? And how do I measure for can they learn everything on their own? Can they apply what they've learned? And can they keep learning new things in a tough situation, right? So we try to give a lot of activities and not look at point in time assessment like a campus placement, but kind of a prolonged assessment and see who's sustaining, who's evolving from a caterpillar to a butterfly sort of thing, right? Sure. And eventually, when we saw these footprints digital profiles, seeing that they're kind of evolving as a developer or evolving as a tester or evolving as a whatever that is, right? So if that sort of aligned with certain opportunities, we said, okay, let's pick these people in the top 2-5%, and we can't take a risk of sending the 100% of the hires without training into the business, because that will cause a lot of risks. Can we at least take a risk with these top 2-5% and send them to business units and see if they can evolve? So, and that was a good success. The business came back and said that they want to increase their salaries by 70% in 18 months, give them 2 promotions in 18 months. So basically it became a model where business could acknowledge that learning agility was actually making a difference.
Right.
Right. So,
And this
and
was
then
which period, which year was it?
2014 to 2018.
Oh, okay. So that is the time also 2015 is when you also started EdTech.
Yeah,
Yeah, EdTech
yeah.
Club. Yeah.
Cognizant is, I think, Cognizant has a big role to play behind the scenes in terms of setting up this EdTech club.
Mm,
So, Cognizant internally had a practice for education.
mm.
I think, Sriram Venkat Krishna. I'm sorry, Sriram is going to probably punish me for this. But yeah, Sriram from Cognizant and was part of a large educational client team, and as part of the strategy advisory team. And we also have one of the Cognizant leaders from that team in our group, Amruta Chinnaswamy. Both of them basically had reached out. I was in the HR side, and they were looking at the work that I was doing, and we had a good conversation. And at that point, the customer was actually looking at what sort of innovations are happening in the tech space in India, and we didn't have an answer for it. So we said, okay, let's go and find people who are working in the tech space, and we searched and we couldn't find a single community. So over a casual coffee conversation, like, let's just start a WhatsApp. So that's how this whole thing started, right? And I think within the first 30, 40 days, we had 100 people in the group.
Wow.
And we started as a Chennai EdTech Club. And I think at that time, WhatsApp had a limit of 256.
Right.
So,
And a lot of people were trying
and
to move to Telegram, right? So especially when you right, went beyond 256, right?
yeah,
Correct. Yeah, I remember
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So we did that, and in 2015, I think around July or August, I don't remember the exact date when we started. But essentially, it started, and we had good traction, a lot of good people finding us, and this was organic. So far, I think the group has got no advertising whatsoever. It has always been organic. People found us somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that's how you would have also come
Correct.
in. And it's nice that way, because somebody in the group would have introduced you, and somebody in the group you would have introduced. So you have that personal connect also, right? So we formed our sort of basic hygiene. We said right from day one, I think there were a few things that were very clear, right? Even at that time, people were tired of groups with good mornings and good evenings and a lot of nothing wrong with that. But we have our groups for that, and this group was not not for that, right? So we very, very clearly we said that we'll stick to education. I mean, sometimes people might think of me as a too much of a referee there, but
No, I think no. Let me kind of delve into it. I think it has been, based on my experience. I'm sure others in the group who have been there for a couple of years or more would align or agree with me. Is I think 99% of the people who come into the group understand why the group is there, what are the do's and don'ts, and you seem to be, on a weekly basis or at least bi-weekly basis, seems to, at least put it out on the group saying that, look, this is what the group is stands for and things like that, right? So I think that keeps everybody honest. So that little policing is needed, because the intention and the for which the group was started should be maintained. Otherwise, I don't think it would have grown to about 900 today. Right. Yeah.
I mean, it is sometimes it is actually a burden. That's when people like Banu or Arun from Guvi, they've all chipped in. They've all, at least they take some load off me. Rajendran from Zoho, we have I think Kaushik and Tanisha. So many of them actually kind of volunteer time to be in admin. At least they we do a simple sort of a check, right? I know, do you work in EdTech? Do you work in education? Have them fill out the member directory form and have them share their inputs. In some way, we give there's a curated message that we say that welcome and so people have shared the responsibilities that way. I mean, I'm super blessed for that. And especially Arun and team Guvi, I mean, super thanks for them, because I think they were the first to sort of, hey, say that let's meet, let's have a face to face, and they kind of went and somehow found a space at IITM Research Park. We somehow coordinated the logistics and all that, and I think the first meet that we had about, I think 30-40 people turn up, which was actually pretty decent.
Good.
And it was back in 2015-16. And and that's how the origin started. And from there, we kind of grew pretty big in Chennai EdTech Club. And it was only Chennai EdTech Club. This was not a pan India,
Right.
or it was just natural progression that came there, right? So when we started this, Sriram, myself, we were sort of brainstorming about how this group would evolve and all that. Eventually, I took a more active role in it and things like that. And um, we, I think when Pundi Sriram from the Step is the English learning product from Hindu. So when they found out the group and they invited us, they had the second sort of meetup hosted at the Hindu office. That gave quite a bit of people coming in, and Hindu was actually, the Step team was actually quite open, and they came about with the format that said that, let us share about what we are doing, what are the problems we are solving. So that was actually powerful, because that was the first time a member in the group was actually showing their vulnerability out and saying, hey, these are some of the challenges that we are facing. These are some of the things that are working for us, not working for us. And I think it takes a lot of courage to do that, right? Balaji Sampath from Aha Guru, another big factor in getting a lot of beautiful people into this community.
Absolutely.
He does fantastic work, and I'm sure with all the work that he does, I'm super surprised how he keeps active on the forum.
Right.
For the kind of social causes that he works for. It's like big inspirations, right? And slowly we exhausted that limit, and around that time my cognizance still got over, and somebody said, you've worked only in employability in white collar space, what about the other space, right? I said, okay, let me take that as a challenge, and I moved from Cognizant voluntarily out and got introduced to NTTF. And the story around it, but yeah, eventually when I came to NTTF, I was supposed to basically set up the EdTech, but I also started looking at the computer science. There are 2 diploma programs in computer science. NTTF is basically a vocational training institution, group of institutions, right? So what I keep telling
it's a
people
private
is
enterprise, but not like the ITIs, which are.
So, the simplest way I explain NTTF is like what IIT and BITS Pilani are for engineering, NTTF is for vocational. So they're kind of a premier vocational training institute, and it was a good experience. I worked under Mr. Raguraj, who's a visionary in terms of skilling in India, and he had so much of high vision. Like, he wanted to kind of transform the technology, what students use, and so I had the opportunity to, under his leadership, to kind of bring in 1 laptop per student sort of a setup. We moved to Microsoft 365 well before COVID, rolled it out. And that was the first time actually I was learning how to deploy such a system in the education space. So it was actually a brilliant experience, and I enjoyed, a lot of young kids from all across the country, mostly tier 2, tier 3. I used to spend a lot of time mentoring, coaching them in their early career sort of decisions and all that. So it was a fantastic experience where, again, my clarity towards employability got even more better. And it was also becoming very clear that somewhere, the whole, if you look at the pipeline or the supply chain for talent, right? Somewhere what has happened is there's a lot of gap in the curriculum in the early years and in the middle school and primary, elementary, secondary education, and then suddenly there's a lot of deeper, advanced topics that is pushed in the higher secondary, and suddenly you are in engineering, and then industry wants something else. So there's a lot of fragmentation, a lot of gaps that is sort of, I don't know how it is evolved that way, but we could observe that clearly, right? And I could clearly see in NTTF that kids coming from very rural background with very low academic performances before coming into NTTF were performing fascinatingly well. Right, like they were able to, they were winning world skills competitions. They were doing phenomenal work in all areas, not just tech, right? So I had the opportunity to look at, to work with one of the directors of NTTF, Mr. Christopher, to kind of set up a curriculum transformational framework and all that, right? So we looked at all the curriculums, right? Not just computer science and IT. So again, that sort of solidified my clarity or my focus that employability uh, should be solved systemically, but it is more important to solve it from a um, each student level. If you have the right, we have students, we don't have
Right.
learners. If you make a learner out of a student, if people can learn how to learn, and the kind of opportunities that you have with internet and with the kind of resources that are accessible to you, I mean, you don't need a curriculum. You will learn and you will evolve to a. So that sort of clarity became very clear. Like, I want I by the time it was very clear that the more energy that I spend with the actual people that are passing through the system rather than people who are facilitating the
Right.
system, right? The better it is in the long run. For, I mean, at least my energy is better spent with the student or the learner population. So that was very clear. That came as a clarity, actually. So I mean, yeah, that and it so happened that at some point again, I said, you know what, I don't think I'm the right person to manage tech, and I wanted to do something in early careers. And Mr. Ragraj was kind enough and said, try and run an experiment. So I tried to float another startup which was into early career
I see.
coaching, and
This was on your own
it
or
was a small startup.
with?
It was on my own. So basically, I had evolved a career coaching framework from my work at within my startup, hiring the people and trying to train them, and then applying it. And so it all kind of takes learning from me as a technical trainer in Infosys, being a manager of resources in my startup, and then building talent
Cognizant,
at Cognizant, and then also kind of building talent for a non-IT sector in NTTF. So all that sort of, I abstracted it out as a career coaching framework, and I said I wanted to go and try it. So I did start as an experiment, but as luck would have it, I got an opportunity to join Microsoft at that time. Microsoft was primarily the role was primarily into how do you grow Microsoft Edge browsers adoption in the education space. It was a very conscious sort of a call for me that it is Microsoft, right? And it is definitely going to give a lot of lessons and learning for me, but it is not an employability. I said, I should, if I want to look at larger systemic aspirations, I should look at, I should kind of get an experience of dealing with large systems. And so that is the sort of exposure that Microsoft gave, talking to people, CTOs of large university systems and CIOs of districts or states in provinces in Australia. So basically, those sort of
So it was a kind of a global role, right? Okay.
Global role. I was looking at the Microsoft Edge browser, adoption and advocacy for all Microsoft's education customers globally.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say, probably of all the roles that I played, that was probably my least successful role. In primarily because it was a more of a business development, more of a business marketing sort of a role. And I think even with all of that, it taught me so much, both me as a person and in how technology adoption happens in different levels of. I worked with schools which had only 10 teachers and 50 students to university systems or government systems that had millions of, like the country of Denmark, for example, right? So the breadth is so huge, you get so much perspective. So that was a phenomenal learning experience again. And then I looked at how some of the top talent actually work. How do they come together to work? And that's observing that was fascinating as well, right? So I mean, I'm so grateful for that. And eventually, Microsoft had to let me go, when they were outsourcing after COVID and all that. At that time, it was a kind of again a call for me, right? Every time I think, whenever I had a moment where life got a pause, it was beautiful because it gave me a moment to stop and reflect as to what I wanted to do. So at that time, I said for a long while. By the time this decision happened, Microsoft, I had already applied and I was already planning to go for a master's. So
I think we have had some discussions around that time. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So I mean, I basically had decided to go for a postgraduate education and get formally kind of certified in foundations of learning, the science of learning, human psychology, and all that, right? So that was what the whole UCL journey was all
about. Why UK
happened.
versus US?
Okay, I was actually looking at. I think there are three reasons why I chose UK. First of all, I wanted to do it in India, but it was so unfortunate that like I had conversations with this, and but I had to take an entrance test, which was in general knowledge and things like what is the square area of Assam, or which is the arranged by the square kilometers, whatever, right? So it was actually I didn't prepare for it, but you're so far connected from that line of
Yeah.
prep that it didn't. I didn't make it through. So eventually, I decided, okay, the first reason why I looked outside of India was, there was a very legacy sort of selection process for postgraduate system in India, and the other reason is most of even the EdTech courses were pen and paper in India, right? That sounded like a contradiction, right? And after having spent about 20, 25 years, I couldn't remember my own handwriting, right? So, so I was very clear I had to study outside India, and between UK and US, it was more of a personal choice to stay closer home, as closer home as possible. Singapore and other places where like the EdTech had a different flavor. It was not more of a, you know, I was not looking at something that is more conservative, more consumerized. I was looking at something in between. I think that balanced curriculum I found it in UCL, and that's why I kind of decided to go there. And one of our group members, Nitya, is to thank for that, and she kind of understood my what sort of aspirations they had and pointed me to this curriculum there, right? So eventually,
and you also did a thesis taking Bangladesh as the.
I did, but it didn't work out. So eventually, I had to settle down for a postgraduate diploma, not a master's. But yeah, I mean, it was a good learning again. I studied the UNICEF's passport earning program, which is again a large-scale skilling program for addressing employability. So I was kind of looking at the frameworks of employability, different sort of early career coaching frameworks across the world, the Edge framework, or there are different frameworks actually. So comparing that with what passport earning was doing, and sort of looking at different research in terms of human development, in terms of self-regulated learning, in terms of program evaluation, program design, and all that, right? So it was a fabulous learning experience again. The most important takeaway that I had from that was I had a very different understanding of how organizations like UN or organizations of that caliber, or the multilateral organizations work. I think I got a sort of my clarity emerged that what I had asked, what I had thought of, and what how it actually ends up or transpires into how this stand was different. And I also kind of realized that I'm more of a, I need to be closer to the ground reality rather than at a 10,000 feet sort of thing, right? So that brought me to Buddy for Study in some way. And so, I mean, Buddy for Study, again, it's not been a day's decision. I think Ashutosh, who's the CEO, I've been sort of mentoring him from 2013. And I think somewhere, somehow, these dots connect, right?
And there's always a time and place that it all connects, right? Correct. So,
Absolutely.
Good. No, I think it's a fantastic journey. I'm sure people who are viewing this would look at your experience, your learnings, and I think even though you might say you are a two-time failed entrepreneur, I think there's a lot of learning from that, right? See, I think that is something that I've always felt that in schools and colleges we don't let the students or the student to fail. Not that we want them to fail. There has to be situations where they see failure and learn from it, right? And if we can create those environments, that will be fantastic, right? Going back to the pandemic, how was EdTech Club functioning then? I'm sure there will be. I'm sure I didn't join at the time. I just wanted your views on how it went through in those 2 years, and I'm sure a lot of people would have probably connected at that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think, see, one of the things that happened is right before the pandemic, 2018, I shifted to Bangalore when I took the job at NTTF. So, I mean, because I knew, I saw the benefit that the Chennai EdTech Club was having, right? And it only made sense for me to set up a Bangalore EdTech Club. So that was the natural progression that created Bangalore EdTech Club, and we soon ran out of 256 members limit there as well. So eventually we combined both of them and brought them to Telegram. I think between the pandemic and sort of the lack of preference for Telegram, we were probably silent, but it is also probably because most of the education edtech teams were actually actively selling and actively growing during pandemic, right? I think the club has generally seen a lot of back and forth when the market has been very challenging.
Yeah.
Right. At that time, I would say the market was more reciprocal in terms of they needed tech and they wanted to get it some way, and a lot of people saw growth during that time. And pandemic actually, I would say we grew. I think the first time I remember hitting 500 plus 600 plus members was during the pandemic. And there was a lot of discussions, but primarily purely to expanding markets and hiring and that sort of discussions. Very less discussions that used to happen on the fundamentals of learning or psychology, or people debating about what's right and what's wrong. And that's the sort of thing that I really enjoy when it happens in the group, right? So because you get to learn, you get to share, and you get to be vulnerable in a group of people who are your peers,
competitors,
who are your competitors, who are your
right.
Exactly right. And it's a safe space in the sense see, one of the big reasons why I have sustained, or all of us have sustained this community is, I think we've all been to those events and summits and conferences where there's a lot of superficial connects that happen, right? We really don't get the time or the energy to sort of when you are free. Conferences are there, right? So it's I think that is the sort of thing where this community sort of gives you these opportunities where there's something boiling in troubling you, and then you share it with the community. A lot of people come into the insights. There might be things that you're not aware of that you can come across, right? There's so many things. For a long time, I was thinking India is going to be the youngest country for many years, right? And then somebody pinged me and says, that's not right. Nigeria is going to take us over in 2040. Okay, that's new to me. I mean, it's not that. I mean, I knew that some of the African countries would also grow, but I never realized that they will take over.
Youngest country,
being the youngest country is something that I thought we will be there for the rest of the century.
No, I didn't know that either. So I think that's a good right.
So see, these small learnings also that come and basically keep correcting your understanding of segment, understanding of different
and also your initiative, recent initiative in terms of Saturdays being kind of allocated for problem solving, right? Where people can actually put out their problems. I think that's good that people are coming forward. I think combining your previous statement of vulnerability, right? People have to be vulnerable, right? Unless you open up and say, look, this is my problem. Yes, there will always be people on the sidelines looking at it and saying, oh, he has that problem, I don't. But then you might have a different problem altogether.
Exactly. Sometimes when people question you, you realize that there was no problem at all in the first place, actually. So clarity evolves when that was. So problem is, we have not been having such vulnerable spaces. If you bring a problem, or if you point out failures in an academic system, you are a failure, right? So there are no systems that allow you to be that vulnerability. Corporate system deals with it in a different way. Academic system deals with it in a different way. As if you want to evolve as an adult, who do I go talk to, right? And that is sort of one of the things that keeps troubling me. Can I get more people to open up? Maybe in smaller cohorts, maybe in smaller sessions. This series that you're doing, right? Maybe that's another experiment down the line. We will see more such stories come out and more such vulnerabilities getting addressed, so people kind of make better products and better decisions and better offerings back to the education. I think we all have a role to do, right?
Absolutely.